You ever hear the saying, never back a cornered animal into a wall? That's a nice version. The real one, the one whispered by war-hardened commanders in dim war rooms or etched into the ruins of glass cities, is simpler. Never corner a human. The Drenari broke that rule. They thought we were just another species to crush beneath their steel boots. They were wrong. My name is Commander Elias Rain, former Earth Coalition Special Operations, now the last living soldier aboard Outpost Kilo 7. Or at least, that's what they think. I've got 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung, and 1 bullet left, but I'm still breathing. Kilo 7 was never meant to be a fortress, just a research outpost on the edge of dead space, orbiting a frozen gas giant no one gave a damn about. We were studying gravitational anomalies. Civilian scientists. Low threat. No weapons heavier than a rail pistol and a half-broken defense grid. We didn't even have a standing garrison. Just me, one man, for morale and protocol. Then the Drenari came. They tore through the station like it was paper. No warning. No broadcast. Just sharp metal, arc pulse rifles, and screams in every corridor. 37 crew. All dead. Some didn't even get the chance to scream. I hid, not out of cowardice, out of instinct. Training. The same kind of training that teaches you how to kill a man in 9 ways with a spoon, or disable a starship engine with a paperclip and a grudge. The Drenari didn't know that. They thought they cleaned house. Mistake number 1. They left 3 patrols behind, each 8 feet tall, armored head to toe in ceramic titanium exosuits, with faceplates that looked like skulls dipped in oil. They move with precision, fast, efficient, alien, but not perfect. I watched from a broken maintenance shaft, bleeding into my coat, as they stacked the bodies of my crew, laughing in their own guttural way. The Drenari don't believe in mercy. They believe in demonstrations. Burn 1 outpost, 100 more surrender. Mistake number 2. I waited until their routine settled, until I mapped their paths, until I memorized the staccato rhythm of their boots on metal decking. And then I started hunting them. The first one I got with a pressure seal charge in the cryogenics bay, shoved it into his rebreather. The explosion turned his faceplate inside out and painted the wall behind him in a shade of gray I'll never forget. The second one, I lured him into the observation deck, punctured the gravity seals, and turned the artificial gravity up to 12G. He snapped like a twig under his own armor. It took him 4 minutes to die. I watched. The third one was smarter. He'd started tracking me, found my blood trail, set traps, so I set a better one. I left my rail pistol in the medbay, out in the open, next to a broken stim injector. Classic bait. When he came to investigate, I triggered the old medical AI. Overclocked it. It injected 300 cubic centimeters of adrenaline straight into his heart. You'd be surprised what a machine meant to save lives can do when you reprogram its ethics subroutines. He tore himself apart trying to rip it out. They're down to 1 now. 1 Drenari. The leader. The one who gave the order to kill everyone on Kilo 7. And he's looking for me. The station's falling apart. Power's failing. Oxygen's thin. My lungs feel like they're full of razors. But I can still crawl. Still think. Still remember what it means to be human. We adapt. We endure. And when you push us to the edge, when you strip away the diplomacy, the treaties, the uniforms, you're left with something far more dangerous. Desperation. He's in engineering now, scanning for thermal traces. He thinks he's got me cornered, thinks he's won, but he doesn't see the wire I've rigged to the plasma manifold, or the coolant tank I've sabotaged. He doesn't know that the station's fusion core is about to overload. He's not the one doing the cornering anymore. I whisper the words through cracked lips, more for me than him. 1 rule, alien. My thumb hovers over the detonator. Never corner a human. You've never seen a Drenari run. They don't flee, not by instinct. Their kind were bred for domination, engineered in cloning vaults the size of moons. They believe fear is a weakness exclusive to prey. But in the final seconds before the fusion core exploded, I saw something flicker in that creature's eyes through his fractured visor. Recognition. Not of me, Of the rule. He ran. Didn't matter. I'd sealed the bulkheads, routed the chain reaction, invented every safety override into a feedback loop. I didn't want to kill him fast. I wanted him to know. I wanted the last sound in his ears to be the groan of the core as it went critical. The explosion didn't vaporize the station. I wasn't that careless. No, it gutted the engineering deck, purged Drenari, and plunged everything else into frigid silence. Then the emergency fail-safes kicked in. Barely. Flickering lights. Screeching klaxons. Atmosphere vents choking on frost. And me, slumped in a shaft, bleeding out beside a dismembered coolant line. I thought that was it. But humans don't die that easy. I came to with a needle jammed into my chest. Med foam. Auto-injected by the half-broken AI in my wrist rig. Pain flared up like wildfire, but I was alive. I crawled out of the shaft, my ribs grinding like gravel. Smoke hung in the corridor like a second skin. The lights pulsed red, and every few seconds the deck groaned like it was trying to shake me off. Kilo 7 was no longer a station. It was a tomb, and I was the last man walking. I made it to the comms ray, barely operational, running on fumes and backup cells. One broadcast left, enough for one signal through the void. I didn't ask for rescue. I didn't beg. I sent a message in plain text, wide beam, low frequency, so anyone could hear it. Even the Drenari, especially the Drenari. Kilo 7. Hostile force eliminated. 37 civilians dead. 1 human remains. 1 rule broken. You cornered the wrong species. I left it on loop. Just those words. Let it echo through the void, riding solar winds and ion trails. I wanted them to hear it. I wanted them to know. I didn't pass out again. Not really. My body did, but my mind didn't stop. It just drifted. I remembered New Dakar, the way it looked at night during the peace accords, the smell of roasted lamb and ozone after rain. I remember my sister's laugh, the way she used old Terran songs when she soldered microcircuits. I remember the screams, too, the silence when the crew stopped broadcasting, the eyes of Dr. Mendez, frozen open in 0G after a Drenari blade tore through her. Those memories stayed. They always do. The good ones haunt you like dreams you can't re-enter. The bad ones just whisper your name. Salvation came 3 days later. A Terran Black Star-class dropship cut through the smoke trail above the gas giant. I didn't move. Couldn't. Just watched as its sleek hull glided toward the shattered hangar. They breached with precision. Pure human coalition special forces. Weapons drawn. Faces unreadable beneath matte black visors. Clear. One of them barked. Then a pause. Then contact. We've got a survivor. They didn't expect me to stand. I did anyway. One of them asked, "What happened here?" I looked him in the eyes and spoke the words slowly, like I wanted the universe to remember. They broke the rule. They evac'd me in silence. No cheers. No medals. No promises. But when we docked on the hospital frigate orbiting Proxima Relay, the crew stood at attention, 1,000 soldiers, lined up like statues, watching me limp out of the shuttle. It wasn't for me. It was for the rule. The brass debriefed me for hours. What happened, how I survived, what I did. I told them everything, except the part about enjoying it, about how right it felt to make them afraid, to hunt them in the dark, to become the monster they didn't think humans could be. They made me a symbol. The Drenari made me a ghost, a name, a warning. But I was still just Elias Rain, a man who saw what humans really were when the chains came off. And somewhere out there, the Drenari were listening, because war had rules once, but they broke them. And now we break back. They didn't retaliate immediately. No fleet, no demands, no honorless broadcast calling for Earth's surrender or retribution. The Drenari Empire responded to Kilo 7 with something far more ominous than rage. Silence. For weeks. The Terran Coalition scanned every system edge they patrolled. No movement, no ships, not even the telltale ion drift of Drenari probes. Entire sectors that used to hum with skirmishes and pirate activity went dead. Black void, radio dark, like they were holding their breath. And the worst part? We knew they weren't retreating. They were planning. I was discharged from active duty 3 days after the medals were pinned on my chest, and the politicians were done using me for speeches. They gave me a new rank, honorary colonel, they called it, and a seat at the War Council. But I wasn't interested in titles. I wanted answers. That's how I found myself standing in the vault beneath Sol Prime Command. Room full of bastards in suits and uniforms, arguing over whether the Drenari would attack Mars or leapfrog straight to Titan. They were talking strategy. I was thinking survival. Admiral Bryson, a man so polished he probably bled cologne, gestured to a blinking star map. They lost a squad. Minimal assets. They're trying to save face. I leaned forward, voice like gravel on steel. You think they care about face? They're a war species, Commander, he countered. Like us. I laughed. Bitter. Short. No, Admiral. They're not like us. Everyone in the room went still. I pressed my hand to the holodeble, zooming in on Kilo 7's last known transmission arc. Humans corner animals. We do it with purpose, tactics, empathy, even regret. I tapped the system they'd hit. They cornered a station full of civilians and left one soldier to bleed out. They weren't sending a message. They were testing one. Turns out I was right. The attack came 2 nights later. Not on Mars. Not on Titan. Not even on Sol. They hit Vega 9, a science colony with 0 military value, no weapons, no ships. Just families, researchers, and a small civilian AI core. They hit it with 20 warships. No demands. No decoration. By the time the Coalition fleet arrived, the atmosphere was gone, the city slagged, and the planetary crust was split like a cracked bone. They didn't just destroy the colony. They unmade it. The Drenari called the broadcast a correction. We intercepted it, low-frequency pulse across quantum entanglement channels. One message, repeated in monotone, translated through neural language codexes. We removed the infection, reasserted the hierarchy. The rule was broken by a lesser creature. It will not happen again. That's when I knew they hadn't learned the lesson. They still thought we were manageable, that we were governed by structure, procedure, containment, that if they struck hard enough, we'd fold. But they didn't realize something fundamental. It's not that humans don't fear death. It's that cornering us doesn't stop us. It creates us. Coalition High Command wanted a response. Something showy, flashy, political. So they sent a diplomat to the Zalthar Accord, sent a task force to patrol aggressively but within treaty bounds. I ignored all of it because I wasn't interested in punishment. I was interested in prevention. So I went off the books, reconnected with an old squad, the kind the Coalition doesn't acknowledge exists. Ex-ghosts, operators so deep in black they never came back up. I told them what happened at Kilo 7, what I did, what they'd done to Vega 9, and I told them the truth. We don't wait anymore. We hijacked a dead freighter, drifting through the Cephei graveyard, stripped it, reinforced it with scavenge plating, wired it with stealth modules, so illegal they didn't have serial codes. We turned it into a spear, and we aimed it straight at the Drenari core worlds, not for destruction, for infiltration, because if they wanted to see what a cornered human really looks like, what one becomes when the walls close in and there's nowhere left to run, then we'd take the war to the heart of their empire, not with armies, not with flags, with whispers in the dark, with knives in the spine, with ghosts. The freighter we took was called the Nightingale. She was dead before we found her, powerless, drifting along the edge of the Cephei graveyard like a ghost too stubborn to fade. We made her something else. We stripped her down to bones and teeth, rewired her systems with stolen Drenari protocols, painted her hull in the deep radiation black that wouldn't show up on standard scans. We didn't want her to be seen. We wanted her to arrive. There were 6 of us. No official records. No serial numbers. No backup. Just ghosts. My second was Voss, former infiltration specialist from a Martian Darkwave division. She spoke 7 languages, none of them human. She didn't say much, but when she did, the room listened. Then there was Milo, explosives expert. Half his face was cybernetic, the other half always smiling like he knew when the end was coming, and planned to greet it with detonation. Ghost and Breck handled ops and recon. A human and a spliced primate hybrid bred for low-grav combat. They were fast, silent, and already dead on paper. And then there was me, Elias Rain, the one they couldn't kill, the one they shouldn't have cornered. We crossed into Drenari space under the shadow of a rogue comet, slipped beneath patrol nets, dodged pulse scans, and vanished into the silence of deep space. The target wasn't a fleet. It was a signal. Deep inside the planetary fortress of Raxus Prime, the Drenari had a central intelligence node, what they called the Coral Mind, a shared, living network that directed their logistics, coordinated their war fronts, and transmitted across their empire like collective thought. Take it out, and the Drenari would go blind for weeks, long enough to hurt, long enough to send a message. We landed in the underbelly of Raxus, buried under centuries of volcanic ash and atmospheric pressure, so thick it chewed through metal. The planet didn't want us there. We came anyway. The tunnels were alive. Drenari infrastructure isn't built. It grows. Veins of glowing resin pulsed along the walls, connected by twitching strands of biowire that shimmered when we passed. The deeper we went, the more we felt it, like the planet was watching us, listening. It wasn't paranoia. It was fact. We're inside a thinking machine, Voss whispered, hand against the wall. It's breathing around us. I didn't answer, just kept moving. This wasn't about exploration. This wasn't science. This was war. The Coral Mind sat in the heart of the fortress, a sphere of neural gel suspended in an anti-grav cradle, wired into a million whispering thoughts. Drenari walked around it like priests in a temple, silent and reverent, their armor humming with latent thought streams. They didn't see us coming. We moved like a shadow. Ghost took out the power relays with silent charge. Milo rigged the wall conduits with chain bombs. Breck dropped down like a phantom and snapped 2 necks before they could scream. And then we stood before the core. It pulsed with stolen knowledge. The deaths of millions. The maps of systems we hadn't even charted yet. Every Drenari action dictated by that mind. I stepped forward, planted the spike. A virus. Human-made. Built not just to destroy, but to rewrite. Because death wasn't enough anymore. They needed to know what we were. Voss looked at me as I primed the upload. You sure this is a way? I didn't blink. I'm sure they'll remember. And I hit the switch. The Coral Mind screamed. Not in sound, but in pulse. A mental scream that shattered every Drenari within 5 kilometers. Blood from their ears. Eyes rolled back. Thoughts turned inside out. Their own network eating itself alive from the inside. We didn't stay to watch it die. Milo triggered the det charges as we ran. Hallways collapsing behind us. Flames crawling to the living architecture. The air howling in rage. By the time we hit the extraction point, the Nightingale was waiting, its stealth skin flickering against the burning sky. We boarded, lifted, vanished, and left the core of the Drenari war machine blind. Hours later, back in the dark, drifting across a forgotten sector, we watched the aftermath. Their fleets fractured, commands misfired, warships jumped to the wrong systems, planets turned on each other, and in every broken frequency, every desperate hail from one Drenari ship to another, the same 2 words echoed again and again. Human error. They weren't blaming us. They were naming it, as if we weren't people anymore. Just inevitability. We didn't cheer, didn't celebrate. We just sat there, watching a galaxy tremble, and understood something simple. They still didn't get it. They thought the lesson was not to corner us. But the real lesson was worse. If you corner a human, and we survive, we don't stop. You'd think after burning their neural core and blacking out half their empire, the Drenari would retreat, pull back, regroup, rethink. But they didn't. They evolved. Whatever fear we planted in their minds mutated into something else. Resolve. Not the kind born of strategy or pride. The kind born of survival instinct. For the first time in their empire's thousand-cycle reign, they believe they might be the ones on the brink. And predators with power don't mourn. They lash out. It started with Procyon B, a military dockyard, defensive grid strong enough to withstand a solar flare. But the Drenari didn't attack with ships. They dropped seeds, biotech weapons coded to reshape matter into living machines. I watched the footage from a recovered drone. Metal bones twisting through steel corridors, flesh spreading over hulls like mold. The crew didn't die screaming. They merged. The final transmission was a whisper through static. The walls are alive. We're not alone in here. Procyon B is now marked as Class Z containment. No response. No retrieval. Just silence. The Coalition called it an escalation. I called it something else. An answer. They weren't just fighting back. They were breaking the board, redefining the rules. And so we had to redefine, too. We weren't ghosts anymore. We were fire. I was recalled to Terra Command and placed under direct oversight of War Marshal Kendrell, a living legend, if you believed in legends. He had no patience for formality. The moment I walked into the war room, he just pointed to the burning sectors on a galactic map and said, "Your fire lit this. Now help me burn them down." So we did. Humanity changed in weeks what it used to take generations. No more borders between Earth's factions. No more debate councils or treaty summits. One voice, one cause, one war. And we weren't alone. The Viltari, long silent neighbors of the Drenari, declared neutrality until they saw what the Drenari did to one of their medical arcs. Then they picked a side. Ours. Same with the Carowin, the hollow-eyed gas breathers who once traded in silence and riddles. Their ships may look like drifting cathedrals, but their plasma cannons rewrite gravity. They joined us too. And when a united human fleet broke through the Drenari's outer sectors, it wasn't just for retaliation. It was for correction. Our strike group hit the twin moons of Zal 3, a former Drenari cloning site. No military infrastructure left, just data, but that data showed something none of us expected. They were trying to become us. There were human samples, DNA, brain scans, emotional replication models. They were building simulations of fear, of pain, of loss. They weren't studying how to defeat us. They were studying how to become us. They had finally understood what made us dangerous. Not weapons, not numbers, emotion, our madness, our memory, our refusal to be erased. I stood in that lab surrounded by echoing machines and burning data, and something twisted in my chest. I remembered Mendez's eyes, Vega 9's ruins, the scream of the coral mind, and I realized something terrible. This war wasn't just about territory anymore. It was about identity. The Drenari broke the rule because they thought it gave them power. But now, we were the ones without limits. And maybe we were becoming the very thing we were warning them about. Back on the Nightingale, Voss sat beside me in the observation chamber. Stars streaked past in silence. "We're winning," she said softly. I didn't answer. "Isn't that what you wanted?" Still, I didn't speak, because something in me, something cold and honest, knew the truth. We weren't winning. We were surviving louder. And survival makes monsters of everyone. Eventually, the Coalition's next target was bold. Xerxes' Reach, a fortified Drenari world near their core system, once thought impregnable. High Command believed cracking it would break their spine. But I had doubts, because in the recordings from the Reach, intercepted a week prior, there were no commands, no structure, just one repeated phrase, broadcast in corrupted Drenari code. The fire speaks. The fire learns. And I knew then, this wasn't just a war of species anymore. This was the kind of war where rules didn't matter, where the only law that still existed was the one they broke. Never corner a human. You ever hear a planet scream? Not the tectonic roar of quakes or the thunder of orbital bombardment. No, I'm talking about a deeper sound, a sound that vibrates through bones, that lingers behind your thoughts and burrows into your dreams. That's the sound Xerxes' Reach made when we broke through its atmosphere. And I think it was screaming because we came back. Xerxes' Reach wasn't just a fortress. It was old, not in the way human ruins are old, with rust and overgrowth. This was age without time, a world carved and recarved, layers of civilization stacked like bones in a mass grave, Drenari structures wrapped around older things, massive obsidian monoliths half buried in ash fields, covered in symbols no species ever recorded. And the deeper we went, the stranger it got. We lost 3 squads before we even reached the central spire. Not the Drenari resistance. There was none, just silence, motionless streets, empty bunkers still warm with power, like the defenders had walked out only seconds before. Then the hallucination started. At first, it was whispers and comms, static distortions that sounded like voices. Then entire squads reported seeing themselves, standing in corridors that didn't exist, wearing armor from campaigns that never happened. One of the rookies, Jasmine Hale, walked straight off a platform and into a fusion pit. She said she saw her mother's kitchen. She hadn't been to Earth in 12 years. Another, Lieutenant Farouk, emptied a full clip into his own reflection. We never found a mirror. Psychological warfare, said Voss, her voice clip-controlled. Drenari tech using invasive memory probes. No, I replied, staring out over the horizon of that cursed world. This isn't them. Because here's what we learned too late. Xerxes' Reach wasn't built by the Drenari. It was found, and what lay beneath it was not meant to be touched. We discovered the core chamber at 0300, beneath the deepest spire. It wasn't on any scan, any map. It opened when we approached, like the planet wanted us there. Inside, a sphere, the size of a dropship, suspended in a cradle of metal tendrils and pulsing with a sick, rhythmic hum. At first, we thought it was a power source. Until it moved. The surface rippled like oil over glass. And it spoke, not with sound, but with memory. My memory. Suddenly I was back in Kilo 7, holding Mendez's hand, watching her bleed out, the Drenari patrols walking past, laughing. Then my daughter's face. But I don't have a daughter. And a scream, low, vibrating, personal, cut to my skull like a wire through flesh. We called it the Nemo's Core, a construct not made for war. Not by us, not by the Drenari, but something older, a relic of a race long gone, or long sleeping. It wasn't just projecting memory. It was feeding on it, growing stronger the more it made us remember, more vivid, more invasive. Worse, it was learning. Every emotion, every pain, every tactic, every rage. It was becoming us. Shut it down, I ordered. Voss hesitated. You're sure? I looked her dead in the eyes. We burn it, or we lose everything. So we planted charges. Milo rigged the fail-safes. We pulled our people out, one by one, those still sane enough to walk. Others, we left behind. Some were begging us to kill them by the end. We lit the sky as we left, watched the core chamber implode in an eruption of light and ash. The Reach is still burning. Weeks later, the fires haven't stopped. And now, strange signals echo through subspace. Coordinates to nowhere. Messages in dead languages. And in every whisper of them, the fire learns. The fire returns. Back at Soul Command, no one talks about Xerxes' Reach. Not officially. Off the record, they're terrified. Because something out there has changed. Not just the Drenari. Us. Humanity has always fought to survive. But now we're fighting with memories, ghosts, emotions sharpened into weapons. We've shown the galaxy what happens when you push us too far. And something older than all of us heard it. As for the Drenari, they're not talking either. But they're not retreating. They're digging, looking for more relics like the Nemo's Core, looking for power. Or maybe trying to understand what they woke up. And I can't help but think, the rule they broke, it didn't just doom them. It unleashed something. There's a silence in war that doesn't come from peace. It comes from pause. From the moment after one side makes a mistake too large to take back, and the other begins to decide what to become next. That's where we are now. The Drenari haven't launched another attack in 26 days. No strikes. No infiltrations. No broadcasts. Just stillness, but not surrender. They're watching us, waiting, because they know what's coming. And maybe, so do we. After the Reach burned, humanity didn't celebrate. We mobilized. The Coalition passed something unthinkable just 6 months ago. The Unification Protocol. All Terran forces, military, intelligence, black ops, even civilian militia, now fall under one command structure, one voice. And they gave it to me. I didn't ask for it. I didn't want it. But when I walked through the scorched halls of Soul Command and saw the faces, young, old, some not even soldiers yet, I understood why they did. Because I'm the man who survived Kilo 7. The man who became the symbol of what happens when you corner a human. They don't want a general. They want a reckoning. The fleet we're building is called Project Echofall, not a strike force. A signal. Every ship is encoded with the Nemo's data, fragments from Xerxes' Reach. Not the whole core, not the entity. Just enough to show the Drenari that we understand what they tried to awaken, and that now we can awaken it too, if they ever think of trying again. It's not a bluff. We have 3 of their ancient cores in containment, and one is whispering. Voss came to me last night, her voice low, her eyes different. Something's coming through the void, she said. Not Drenari, not us, something else. She handed me a tablet, filled with intercepted Drenari logs. The Drenari are no longer fighting us. They're digging into their own planets, searching beneath ancient crusts, looking for more relics, more cores, more memory. They think they can control it. They still haven't learned. I stood before the Unified Command Council this morning, told them everything, told them the truth. We didn't win the war. We changed it. This was never about territory or pride. The Drenari broke a rule the universe itself had written in blood. Never corner a species that adapts through pain. We didn't become monsters. We became mirrors. And now the galaxy gets to decide, will it reflect mercy or vengeance? And here I am again, on the Nightingale, orbiting the edge of Drenari space, waiting, not to fire the first shot, but the last, because the Drenari sent one final message, not over comms, not through threat, a box drifting through space. No explosives, no virus. Inside, a human skull, charred, burned, and a single Drenari symbol carved into the bone. Respect. They finally understood, but it's too late now. They thought they were sending a warning. What they really sent was permission. Humanity didn't start this war. We didn't ask for it, but we learned something along the way, something the stars will remember long after both our species are dust. When you corner a human, you don't get surrender. You don't get compliance. You don't even get survival. You get transformation. This isn't a story of how we won. This is the story of how we became something no one could ever corner again. So let this echo across the stars, past dying empires and newborn civilizations, burned into every commandment, every doctrine, every first contact protocol. Let them etch it in every alien tongue. One rule: never corner a human.